Starting the stream. It's that time of year. All of the weather's just going back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the rain too. We've had rain.
There was rain today.
That always makes me have congestion.
Yep. Hello. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Friday. We're gonna do a quick pre-show and then jump in because we got some stuff coming up. But we have kind of a packed episode. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
When it comes to managing energy. And it's funny because when I sat down earlier today, I was thinking, well, we just did an episode about managing time. And I'm sure we talked a little bit about energy management too, even though we were getting in. But as I dug in, I was like, man, there's just so much to talk about here. So it's going to be good. You want to go ahead and dive into it. Also, welcome to our dining room. I'm in the middle of a studio renovation. So my upstairs studio where we normally film this is kind of in flux. Like I'm taking pieces out of there and moving them to our other studio, but this was going to be a simpler setup and it looks pretty good. I think it's a good shot. We're just sitting at the kitchen table. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive in. Hello and welcome to In the Boat with Ben and Rachel. I'm Ben.
And I'm Rachel.
And this show exists to address common creator struggles and provide weekly inspiration for your creator journey. Today we are talking about managing energy. In fact, I had a fun title for this. I'm not sure if you saw it. Rachel is muted, so that's a problem. Let me check on that real quick.
Might have to do the intro again.
Go ahead and talk.
Check. It looks like it's showing up there, but thanks for letting us know, Cody.
It's always something.
That just made a big noise there. Maybe I'm not turned up enough or something?
No, this microphone sometimes gives us a hard time.
Oh. It's just my microphone. Wait, which one is mine?
Well, this one's mine, and I'm loud and clear. This one's not coming through for some reason. So, let me see. I want to make sure it's not something. Shouldn't be something related to that. Put you in a different channel and see if that works.
Might have to get new equipment. Does that work? No,
So
it's
it's
coming
the-
through yours.
It's the microphone. There's something going on.
Well, darn. So,
Can you do me a favor and let the cat out?
if we catch him. I can get out of the seat. This is kind of a.
Okay, I got it working.
Oh.
Pretty sure. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties, folks. Another thing to add to my weekly checklist to make sure things are working correctly. So you should be able to hear me, and when Rachel gets back, you should be able to hear her. There she is.
Let's see. Oh,
Sorry, that's kind of...
this is an awkward place at the table.
It is. It's, yeah. That's why I made you sit there.
Yeah. I'm a little smaller than you.
All right, we are going to do the intro
Pops and taps.
one more time.
Okay.
Just real quick. Thanks Cody for looking out. Okay. Hello and welcome to In the Boat with Ben and Rachel. I'm Ben.
And I'm Rachel.
And this podcast exists to address common creator struggles and provide weekly inspiration for your creator journey. Today we are talking about managing energy. I had a fun title for this. I called it, oh, come on. I get like, there's not a place where I can just look at the whole title. I got to do this, I think. I called it Zero Energy, but your to-do list is a mile long.
To do actually has a hyphen in between to and do, just so you know.
Yeah, well, so I have an editor, but she's never available. So, anyways, I feel that way often. Like, oh, I've got so much to do.
Yeah.
With a hyphen. I've got so much to do, but so little energy.
It only has a hyphen if it's modifying list.
All right. So this is a grammar lesson.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sure people would be riveted to hear all the grammar I know.
So there's a lot of stuff to get into when it comes to managing energy and how energy influences your productivity and all of that. But before we get into some of the more kind of scientific stuff, I wanted to just take turns real quick talking about our personal experience of energy and productivity from day to day. So just to kind of get into what I'm talking about, I'll share first. So I observe that I usually start the day pretty excited and eager to get into things, and immediately interrupted by a few things that I have to do. I have to get up and work out. I actually enjoy that. So, and then I have to make sure the kids get ready and get off to school on time. And that makes starting work a little bit tough. If I don't have something that I'm really excited about to jump into immediately after sending the boys to school, it takes me a while to really get going, to feel like energetic. And then sometimes that's interrupted by meetings, which are necessary. And then by the afternoon, I start to really like drop off.
Slump.
Yeah, I hit a big slump. Usually I need to take a nap. And then I honestly start feeling a little bit more energetic again around 3 and 4, just in time for me to have to cook dinner and stuff like that. So then we've got the whole dinner nighttime routine, and then I get another big dip in energy around 7-ish, something like that. On some days I could go to bed at 7:00 and I could fall asleep. But that doesn't, I'm not really able. It's like 6:30 or 7. So I'm not usually able to do that. And then I start to wake up again a little bit, and sometimes I'd end up taking some work into the evening, and I will stay up and do a little bit of work. That's honestly my least favorite time to work. If I have to do anything after, 7 or 8, I usually start to feel really sleepy, and that's kind of like my body's like, I don't want to do this,
And your productivity probably suffers because of that.
Yeah, there have been, like, with certain things, I can get into a zone. But that's kind of a typical day. But then there's a lot of variance, depending on the day and what I had going on, how I slept the night before, what I ate sometimes, which we'll get into. So what about you? How do you experience energy and productivity on a typical day?
Well, I think we're going to get into this whole like introvert extrovert thing, but
okay,
I have like zero energy when I wake up in the morning. And I usually start my day with a run, and that, helps up my energy a little. But then it's like the getting kids off to school and trying to make sure nobody is missing anything. The older kids don't miss the bus. Like, all of that is so draining to me. And then, like, my energy shoots up as soon as the house is empty. Like, as soon as it's empty, I'm like, I can do anything. And so I feel like for my work day, I have a lot of energy for all of the projects that I work on. And then I notice, you and I kind of take turns cooking dinner, but I notice on the days that you're cooking dinner, I mean, I work all the way up to 5:30 when dinner's ready. And I immediately, like, when I close my computer, I immediately feel, it could be the expenditure of creative energy, but I immediately feel like I could just go to sleep, because I know that I have to come downstairs to a really loud dinner. And it's not that I don't enjoy hanging out with my family or the kids or anything. It's just that it's really loud and it's a lot, So I feel like my energy kind of, it's like the opposite of yours, I guess. Which is funny.
We're gonna have to talk about that sometime. That's a whole other topic, because it sounds like one of the common threads for both of us has to do with the things that we have to do related to the kids. And it's not that we don't love our kids. It's not that we don't enjoy spending time with them. But eight people around a table is a lot, even for me. Like, I'm an extrovert, and that feels like a lot. And then there's that whole aspect of, like, you're trying to, it's like that expression, it's like herding cats. Like, it feels like you're juggling when you're trying to manage people who are not yet competent to
at virtually anything
take care of themselves and remember. And it's like, I feel like we've tempered our expectations. Like, we know, they're not going to remember stuff from day to day, but still every day I feel dread when I think about having to get everybody ready for school. And I feel dread when I think about, like, after dinner chores and having to, like, make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah. And it's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. And
it's like being a CEO but not getting paid.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyways, I think that is really relevant, I think, for a lot of parents. I think that's relevant to the conversation about energy, because everybody has stuff in their day that they don't want to do, but they have to do.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that a little bit more. So, but yeah, I want to make a note here that, like, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about the things that we make ourselves do as parents. I'm bringing my computer a little bit closer in so I can. So there are, I'm going to type and not talk at the same time, because I'm not good at it. So there are some actually practical elements related to energy. I had once upon a time thought about it as this kind of nebulous concept, like, some days I might have energy and some days I might not, and there's not really anything that I can, like, I don't really have any control over that. And there are some things about energy that you don't really have control over, but there are some things that you do have control over. And so I wanted to kind of go through, there are 4 basic categories that we can talk about energy in, and that help us get a better understanding of how our energy works, and things that are in our control that we can do to kind of maybe get a little bit more energy, but at the very least make the most of the times throughout our day when we have energy. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the relationship between energy and food, sleep, exercise, and recreation. Just like a basic self-care, or so we probably have all experienced, like, when we don't get enough sleep, we don't have as much energy the next day. When
it's not as much the next day as the day after that.
Well,
it seems like.
yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Well, just in general, not getting enough sleep steals energy from you.
Yeah, especially if it's chronic.
Right. If you eat certain types of foods, it messes with your energy. Whether or not you exercise can influence how energetic you feel. Whether or not you get rest and recreation, so like actually getting some time for yourself to do things you enjoy, or just to rest, that can affect your energy. So I don't want to necessarily take all of those things and get into the specific details, but just knowing that there's a relationship between those things, I think, can help us be more conscientious about, and what it did for me, the more I started learning about those things, I started paying more attention, and I started observing.
Well, you can recognize patterns
Yeah.
if you're aware and you do pay attention. So you can sometimes link those things back.
So I do want to talk about I want to focus on a couple of specific aspects. So there's this thing called the circadian rhythm, and you've heard of that before. And it's basically your body's biological mechanism that manages your alertness and your sleep, other processes in your body. A lot of times when folks talk about circadian rhythm, they're talking about it in the context of your sleep patterns and that kind of thing, but it also influences your energy, and it's linked to the release of different hormones at different times and stuff like that. So it's really, really fascinating stuff. But when I started looking into how the circadian rhythm influences energy, there's this kind of pattern that it follows throughout the day, and I was so surprised by how well it lined up with what I was experiencing. I was like, oh wow, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically, there's a morning ramp up, where your energy is beginning to rise. There's a morning peak, an afternoon dip, which I talked about. There's an evening ramp up and peak, and then there's an evening wind down. I would throw in there that I think I may also. So I wonder if that evening wind down is where I'm starting to feel sleepy.
Yeah.
That 6:30
I don't feel like
to 7.
I have an evening ramp up though. Maybe it's because of how many people are in our house.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
this
like
isn't.
I can't experience the ramp up.
Yeah, this isn't meant to be like
Yeah.
this is everybody's template, but and this so your rhythm, or the rise and fall that this is describing, might look similar, or it might look a little bit different, and also when it happens is going to differ from person to person. Some people are naturally early risers, and that's their rhythm is lined up with an earlier ramp up. Some people start to ramp up later, and then they end up staying, like they can stay up until 10 or 11, but then they sleep until,
Yeah.
7 or 8 the next day, something like that.
This is scientific research, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I probably shouldn't say this, but it's probably based on a man.
No, there's a wide body of study that probably is majority male, but
some female. Yeah.
Yeah. This is old enough stuff that I'm certain they've expanded the the pool of
Yeah.
study participants.
Okay, if you say so.
I'm just
kidding.
but yeah, I mean, they're going to be obvious just because of the hormonal differences between most men and most women. There are going to be obvious differences there. So it's not meant to be a this is the template.
Yeah.
But it's really like the point of this is really to say you have a rhythm, and it operates based on natural processes in your body and is more or less outside of your control. What you can control with things like getting enough sleep, with things like getting regular exercise, with things like getting rest and recreation, with things like eating, not eating too much sugary foods or simple carbohydrates, you can influence how high those peaks are and how low those dips are. You can kind of have a more stable rhythm.
Yeah.
So like the food stuff for me, we have our cheat days on the weekends where we tend to eat more sugary foods, more simple carbohydrates. And I notice that the dip that I experience in the afternoon is usually greater because my blood sugar and my insulin is a little bit out of whack because of that. And so it takes, getting back into our regular diet, it takes a day or two for that to start to even out again. And then I throw it out of balance again.
Yeah.
So,
we should probably reevaluate that, but
yeah.
But it's fun to have cinnamon rolls every now and then.
It is. So anyways, all of this is to say that there is a rhythm. It's something that you can observe in yourself and kind of figure out, okay, what's happening. And then there are a few different things you can modify. You can kind of turn different dials to experiment and see how does that affect the rise and fall of your energy throughout the day. But just based on what I've described so far, like what is that? How does that line up with what your experience has been?
I mean, I mentioned I probably don't have the ramp up. I start feeling super tired around dinner time, and then it just gets worse. Like sometimes it's even hard for me to read at night as a wind down because I'm just so exhausted from the day.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know that I experienced the afternoon dip either. I think mine is pretty even across, which could be, I mean, I eat cleaner than you do, so.
And you exercise more.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So, I do tend to snack more than you do, and you probably exercise twice as much as I do. Like
probably, yeah.
I'm sure you get more sleep than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know that I experience like the peaks and the dips and stuff. I think mine's, I don't know. I always have a lot of energy for my work, I feel like. I think it's the other stuff. It's like the home stuff. Like when I think of cleaning the house or cooking dinner, I don't feel energetic at all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's talk about that, because that kind of gets into the next. There's how your energy works based on the type of tasks you have to do. So when I think about productivity, and like when I'm the most productive is, and I guess you can kind of think about this in a couple of different ways. So there's this idea of getting into a state of flow, and you can think about that as like an individual task that you're doing, or you can think about it as a collection of tasks that you're doing kind of throughout your day. And I've experienced both, where like I'm editing a video and I'm just in the zone and I'm in that state of flow. But there's also this kind of energy that I get when I've got, you know, a list that I'm working down, and there are several things on that list, and they all kind of fit into this category of they're maybe a little bit challenging. They take some problem solving, but I also have the ability and the skill to get them done, and I feel the satisfaction of like, oh, I checked that off my list. Now on to the next thing. And I can feel what seems like a state of flow going from task to task like that, even if they're not exactly related. But you know, like some things just will not fit into that category, like cooking dinner from a recipe book. That's what it is. So actually yesterday, I needed to make lunch for us.
Yeah.
So the kids were at school. They already had their lunch. So it was just, I was making lunch for the two of us. I had ingredients, but I didn't have to look at a cookbook. I didn't have to figure out,
You
okay,
just
what,
put them all together.
so I was like, okay, here are my ingredients. Let's, figure this out. And I made, it was like taco soup, but it was more of a stew. It was really delicious.
It was really good. Yeah.
And the feeling and the energy of cooking that meal versus, okay, it's 4:30. I need to get the cookbook down and look at what we're making tonight. Oh, I'm going to read the ingredients list. It's like 20.
We're like diametrically opposed. Cause like if I don't have a plan, that's how I feel right there. What you're describing.
There are like 20 items in this ingredients list, and I'm like, okay, and
That must be why I enjoy baking.
They're
so
not
much.
obviously grouped together by like where they are in the various refrigerators. So I'm like,
No, it's
I need to go get this.
it's in the order that you put it in the recipe.
Well, not
It is actually. That's how they write cookbooks.
really always.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I'm like, oh, okay, I need to get the tomatoes, and I bring the tomatoes, and then I go down like in the middle of the list. Oh, I was supposed to get the onions. I wish I had known that when I got the tomatoes.
Well, you gotta take the list and gather everything first, and then you have them all on the counter ready to go.
I just hate the whole thing. So the way flow works is there's this cool chart, and it's like I'm looking at it right now. That's why I'm looking at my computer. But on the vertical axis is skill. There's low skill up to high skill. On the horizontal axis, there's low difficulty to high difficulty. And somewhere as you're taking it from low to high, and you're following both axes, so you're going up in difficulty and you're going up in skill, sort of a kind of a vertical, not vertical, what is it?
It's like a diagonal.
Yeah, diagonal. Sorry.
Wow.
When you're going along that diagonal, I just couldn't think of the word.
Ben's energy management has been.
Yeah. When you're going
suspect.
along that diagonal, you're in a state of flow, basically. So like if it's low skill, if you have low skill but it's low difficulty, then you can
Do it automatically.
Yeah, you can just do it automatically. If it's high difficulty but you have the skills to do it, you can also be in a state of flow.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of skill for something, but the difficulty is low, so it's like, I'm really good at doing this, but it's not very challenging. You get into a zone where you feel more boredom. If it's something that is a really difficult task, but you don't have a lot of skill to do it,
You panic.
you get into anxiety.
Yeah.
And so when I think about the tasks that I do throughout the day for either for household stuff or work, they I could measure them on this chart, and I could probably predict and tell you, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure, like the dinner stuff, I think it's in the boredom side. I don't know. There's another
You're like
thing
really
that's
good at cooking and it's
no,
just
I don't
too
know.
easy.
No, I think there's another thing. There's another thing that is maybe missing from that chart, and that's it just feels really tedious.
Yeah.
And tedium and boredom
Yeah.
kind of feel like they match to me, but
I can like mark out one of the ingredients and have you figure out what's going on with it.
I don't
It's like
need
a
to,
puzzle. I'm just kidding.
I don't need to make it more challenging. In that example, it's hard for me to place that because
Yeah.
it's not hard for me to cook meals. Maybe it's a mix of both, because what happens too is like I procrastinate because I really don't want to do it.
Yeah, I know. And we have dinner late every time you cook.
And then I'm cooking at the last minute, so there's a
That's how
difficulty
you
level
challenge
there.
yourself.
Like, oh man, I got to
Except
get this
food
done.
doesn't cook faster than it cooks. So.
That's right. Yeah. You can't.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
So anyways, that I think it's a really good thing to understand about the task that you're doing is this a task that I have a lot of energy for, or is it a task that like I really don't feel like doing, or it is anxiety inducing? Those kind of tasks are going to steal your energy. Now, they may be things that you still have to do,
Mm-hmm.
but if you know the nature of the task, it's a lot easier to understand how it's affecting your energy. And then you might realize, oh, I can't, if I want to have a lot of energy for something, I can't schedule it right after this other thing that I hate doing,
Mm-hmm.
that I have to do every day, because I'm not going to have a lot of energy for it.
Yeah.
That's how you manage your energy, based on those criteria.
Yep.
So we touched on this a little bit, but I did want to get into quickly the relationship between energy and personality. So you've got me, an extrovert, and you, an introvert, living in a house with 7 other people. So I think that a lot of what's happening to you, besides, having to manage everything, is just being around that many people
Mm-hmm.
Tends to affect your energy.
Yeah.
How's your experience with that been?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that's exactly what it is. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of activity. There are a lot of moving parts, and I like orderly things, and I like quiet, not like complete quiet. I'm okay with conversations and things like that, but when there are a lot of people in a house, it's almost like you're going to this loud restaurant for every meal that you sit down, and we eat every meal together.
Every dinner.
Every dinner, yeah. And it kind of gets overwhelming, I feel overwhelmed a lot in our house, and we had this many kids, and that's just the nature of it, and so we have to deal with that. But
yeah,
it's a lot of lost energy. And so when you talk about, and schedule clutter really gets me, and I think it has a lot to do with how much energy I lose on a day-to-day basis, just like taking care of our kids, so when we talk about doing extra things like going to see friends or going on trips that require other people I don't know who are involved, and I just like it feels super overwhelming to me.
Yeah, because you're anticipating what that's going to do to your energy, and how that's going to affect the rest of your week. So like we're coming into a pretty busy weekend, but like our last weekend was busy. I think the weekend before that
was, and
And it's not just the busyness, but there have been quite a bit of social activities,
Mm-hmm.
and that has energized me.
Yeah.
So
So you're like, oh, we can do more.
yeah, I've felt more energetic because of that.
Yeah.
But have you noticed, like, going into your Monday,
Yeah.
have you
Oh, I'm
noticed?
not ready.
Yeah.
Like when I wake up on Monday morning, I don't feel ready to do things. I make myself do things because I'm I'm a task. Oh my gosh. I'm a task-oriented person, and I thrive on getting things done, but I have written more times than not in my journal the last few weeks on Monday morning, I do not feel ready for this day,
Mm-hmm.
So just the nature of, everything that is required just from our household family, and then I don't know, but I do feel like my work re-energizes me. So the more,
Yeah.
that's probably why I think this week I've been a little late on the days that you cook dinner. I've been a little late to come down because I don't want to leave work, because it's like, this is where I get energy right now. And now I have to, I have to shore it up and go interact with my children.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible, but it really, it's like the more social activity we have, the less energy I have. There was a time when you and I, we traveled around and did things with our band, and at the time we had between 1 and 3 children, and I had so little energy for it because of the demands of taking care of young children and then having to socialize with people. I mean, it was like we'd spend weeks at camps and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just I think I went through a really long burnout period because I could never get, like, when we were done with the camps, I had to go take care of the children, and there was no time to just be by myself, So that's the kind of stuff I think about whenever I think about, how busy our calendar has been lately.
When you come into your week and you've had a weekend like that, and you know that's going to affect your energy, even though your work is energizing, do you take that into account with your expectations on yourself?
No.
and what you okay
What do you think?
I mean, I was pretty sure the answer to that was no.
Like, I will still get 10,000 words on this project this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like you have really high standards for yourself, and so,
And there's just so little time in life, It's like, I got to do all of these things.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's fine. Some people might need to hear that it's okay.
Oh, yeah, totally. I would never tell somebody to do what I do. I know
Yeah.
it's not good.
It's okay to lower your expectations of yourself when you know that if you're an introvert and you've been spending a lot of time around other people, coming back to your work after that, you're going to have to ramp up your energy again before you're operating at the same level. And maybe that's what it is. So, like, you get back into your work, and maybe you end up producing good stuff, but maybe you have a day or two where it just doesn't feel like the ideas are coming to you as easily, and like you're stuck on a scene, or like you have these other tasks that you have to do for your writing that aren't as energizing, that you keep putting off. Those kinds of things I think
that, yeah.
happen, and it might be just good to be aware of the connection between what life is doing to your energy and when you're experiencing those kind of moments. in your work?
I will say too that my work is very solitary, and so it does feel like it's. I mean, I feel like I'm so fortunate to get to do what I do because it really does. It doesn't feel like a job to me, you know. So I think that's a little bit of a difference too. I think sometimes when people go to work and it's a creative job or something, you know, and they're an introvert and they've had weekends like mine, maybe it doesn't feel as refreshing because they work with other people or they have to be very collaborative. But mine, most of the time, I'm working in a solitary, you know, place by myself with quiet. And so it feels re-energizing. It feels like I'm cheating, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I kind of need to do the opposite. I need to
go to coffee shops and yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't done as much of that recently, but
yeah.
Well, and that's a good segue, I think, into this last segment real quick. And really the whole point of this is really just observing how your energy works and being aware of the different things that influence your energy makes it easier for you to be purposeful about how you structure your day so that you're scheduling tasks, you're scheduling your work in a way that lines up with your energy. You're not working against yourself, but you're working with the flow of your energy. And some of those things are outside of your control. Like we have constraints because of the school schedule and stuff like that. But there are other things that we, you know, like I know I shouldn't do anything that's really creative and like high level work during that afternoon slump. You know, that's time to do, or maybe it's the other way around, because the afternoon slump might be a better time to do something creative because
it energizes you.
It energizes me. Yeah. That's not the time to do administrative work.
Yeah. Stuff that bores you. Yeah. Agreed.
So this is kind of the 3-step. So you observe your energy to see where your peaks and dips are. Maybe you catalog that in a journal. Maybe you keep a spreadsheet. You know, however you like, whatever. Go nuts with it. Whatever version of that you want to do, or just like, you know, make mental notes. And then audit your schedule to see what matches your energy and what doesn't, and then purposefully move things around according to where your energy is.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Definitely something I need to do again.
I will say I'm not a yogi, but I feel like I plug yoga all the time. But yoga is a very calming exercise that you can do that also feels like it gives you energy. So I do yoga throughout my day when I feel like I'm, you know, having trouble with certain tasks and stuff. I'll just be like, oh, I'll just do a 10-minute yoga. So
that's through Apple Fitness Plus.
Yeah,
I would not sponsoring this podcast.
They should sponsor us because I love Apple Fitness Plus. I would talk about it all day. They have great programs.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that they've got like these, it's a 10-minute yoga session.
They have stretching sessions too, so that like if you're sitting at your desk a lot, you can do a 5-minute stretch.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing that always gets me. If I'm like, oh, I should do a yoga thing, I'm always thinking about it as like this 30-minute thing that I'm gonna, but it doesn't have to be that big of an interruption. Yeah. So.
Well, and those kinds of things, like when you feel yourself nodding off in the afternoon dip, you know, get up and do a stretch. That those things can, you know, they connect your brain to your body, and then you're suddenly not so tired anymore.
Yeah. The thing that I'm going to kind of push, you've got your Apple Fitness Plus. I'm going to say I love naps.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
If you've never tried,
I schedule naps.
If you've never tried just like a 20-minute nap.
I do 26 minutes. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean,
but
whatever.
I set my timer for 26 minutes.
You know, don't do like a 30 or 45. You're starting to get into this zone where like you experience a thing called sleep inertia. but like a 20-minute nap is magical for me. It just, I finished that and I'm like, I feel like I'm a whole new person now.
Yeah.
So
You used to do the coffee thing too, didn't you?
yeah, I
Like
call them
drinking
coffee
coffee
naps.
before-
So you
yeah.
drink a cup of coffee and then you take a nap. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it takes about the same amount of time for the caffeine to start
hit you.
working, to like mess with your receptors, as it does to take. So you take that 20-minute nap and then you wake up and the coffee's kicking in and it's like, oh, all right, here we go. If you're a coffee drinker.
So it works.
That's a little trick.
It works according to Ben. So there you go.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this show.
Yep.
Wish you the best in your endeavors to figure out your energy. If you want to help out the show, you can go to your favorite podcast app and leave a review. Let us know what you think of the show. That also helps other people find the show and determine whether or not they want to check it out. You can also share an episode with a friend of yours or a family member, somebody who maybe would benefit from hearing the stuff we talk about. That would mean a lot.
Yep.
Rachel, where can they find you online?
RachelTolson.com and Rachel Tolson on all the things. At Rachel Tolson.
Yep. And I am at bentolson.com and at Ben Tolson on all of the things. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. After show, I need to blow my nose first, though.
Uh-oh.
I'll be right back. Don't listen.
Yeah. This was almost a deal breaker. I'm just kidding. He blows his horn like a moose. I mean, his nose. I made sure to be nice and quiet while you did it.
I tried to keep it tame so it wouldn't
Yeah.
freak people out. Okay. So we're working on borrowed time right now, but because we're still dealing with the repair of this stupid exercise
Elliptical
machine.
machine.
So they're supposed to be here any second, but I thought we could briefly talk about, I made this note, the things we make ourselves do as parents. And, you know, there's the stuff that we have, like in this episode, we talked specifically about the stuff that we have to do in the morning, getting them ready for school. And what's really, and we talked about like dinner and like the after dinner chores and the after dinner reading time and stuff. There are different things that are frustrating about each of those.
All of those, yeah.
But a lot of them, I think, share a common theme of like us having to
Constantly manage.
redirect and manage and remind. And it's like we created a system that if everybody operated
was
within
doing
that
their part.
system, was
Yeah.
doing their part.
It would be much easier.
Yeah. And we believe in it because we feel like autonomy is really important. The easy thing to do would be to
Not have any of those things.
well, the easy thing to do, for example, with getting the kids ready for school would be to physically go get their backpacks ourselves, physically put their lunches into their backpacks,
Yeah.
put their IDs and their water bottles next to their, like, set all their clothes out for them the night before, you know, like,
yeah. Put their
it would be-
shoes where they can find them.
I would prefer that to having to remind them every day, because it feels like insanity.
It really does.
It feels like it's that, you know, you do the same thing
Over
expecting
and over
different
again, yeah.
results. Like it feels like insanity.
I think as parents, you're like, surely one day it's like they're going to remember what they're supposed to do before school to get themselves to school. And it hasn't happened so far.
Yeah, I mean, I got a text this morning from one of the kids asking if I could drive to their, like, bring their ID to the school for them and drop it off at the front office.
Nope. Sorry, kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but we have our philosophy is that if we make them responsible for those things, they will become more autonomous. They will learn responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And they won't be able to blame anybody but themselves. And I feel like that's an important lesson too, is if they have somebody to blame, they're going to do it. But if they're the ones responsible for not having their ID, that's not our fault, you know?
And it's just taking a long time for that to pay off.
Yeah. It really is.
And we're tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like,
I mean, to be fair, nobody's perfect.
no,
We know that.
no, nobody's perfect. I forget things
Yeah.
from time to time
Often.
too.
Yeah.
I said from time to time. But I don't make my things other people's responsibility.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't, like, there are times when I don't take care of something and you end up having to take care of it, or vice versa. But like, I feel like most of the time I'm aware of that when that happens, and I at least apologize and try to figure out a plan for preventing that from happening in the future.
Yeah. They don't have that awareness, or they don't choose to be aware. I don't know.
Yeah. And dinner is a similar kind of thing, but I think it's different in the respect that we have this value, this family value, that we all sit around the dinner table together, all 8 of us. Mm-hmm. And for me, I can't remember like what the conversation was like when we made that decision. Mm-hmm. But for me, like, I remember seeing some statistic about, like,
there's research that
kids who eat dinner at the dinner table with their family are some percentage less likely to, and it was like a list of
try drugs,
bad things. Yeah.
Quit school,
and so that kind of scared me into this, like, idea of, I got to make sure my kids sit around the dinner table. But it's sometimes a pleasant experience. Like, we do have some
good conversations.
Good conversations.
I think lately it's been hard because one of our children is in an extracurricular thing, which we've kind of worked hard to avoid for the most part. But it has him getting home later, and so it makes the whole experience a little crazier.
Yeah, like, I have to leave when dinner starts to go pick him up, and then he comes home and
But I think at other times it's been a little more enjoyable because the conversation hasn't felt quite as crazy. I don't know what it is. Well, I think when certain people are leading the conversation, like, you're really good at leading the conversation, and so is the one who's in the extracurricular activity. And I think when y'all are here, it makes it a little more, it's funny because I think it's your personalities. It makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
So we're left with all the ones who have different brains, We're left with the one on the autism spectrum and the 2 with ADHD. And so it's just like, nobody's managing the conversation because I'm done,
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. You come down, you're already like zero energy.
Yeah.
And the idea, like, from that state, the idea of trying to manage a conversation as an introvert.
Yeah.
It's like,
no. So I just let the little ones do their thing. So.
Well, and it was when they were younger and more compliant.
It was easier.
It was fun because if they left the table, it was because they got distracted by something,
Yeah.
and we could be like, get back to the table, you know.
Mhm.
Now they're older, more independent, and when they leave the table, we're like, hey, get back to the table. And they're
And they're
like,
like, "Why?
why?
Why should I?" Yeah.
And I have to pull
I'm
out
done-
my
I'm done with
computer
dinner.
and I'm like, the statistics, no.
Yeah.
They don't like
They
that
don't
kind
care
of
about that.
reasoning. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it
kind of
doesn't work.
reasoning doesn't matter. And it's so hard.
The sigh. Yeah, parenting teenagers is hard.
Yeah.
I think the little ones were a lot of hands-on work, but they were easier because they adored us.
Yeah, I want to enjoy dinner, and then like of course the after dinner chores.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that hasn't been terrible.
No,
They
I
do a
think they're
really good
finally
job of doing, you know,
Their
doing their
chores.
chore.
Yeah, we only
and-
have to remind a few of them.
Yeah.
The 15-year-old didn't do his.
Nope.
I can already
I
tell.
can. Yeah, I'm looking over at the counter. I see the crumbs.
Oh,
Anyways,
that was a long after show.
that was like a venting session.
Yeah.
So
Cathartic.
I don't know if that's useful to anybody. We didn't solve the problem.
Just stop having dinner together.
Yeah.
Everybody, does what they need to do themselves. They can cook their own dinners, right?
One day they will,
I know.
and it'll just be the two of us at the table, and we'll miss.
We'll miss the craziness,
miss
I'm
it.
sure.
On that note,
Wow.
yeah.
So sad.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're still listening, congratulations on making it this far. And we'll talk to you next time.